Hi everybody, my name is Danny and I do all types of YouTube videos. Today I'll be doing a review of the Star Wars trilogy. So that would mean Episode 4, which is A New Hope, Episode 5, which is The Empire Strikes Back, and Episode 6, which is Return of the Jedi. So I just wanted to timestamp this video, and so today is Saturday, May 23, 2020. It's 11:41 p.m. here. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about things. So I'm just going to time this so that I don't go too long. Oh, thirsty too. Okay, so just a little bit of background as to a little bit of background here. I've always been a big Star Wars fan. So as you can see, in back of me, I have the if you can't see this logo, it says it's Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and this, of course, is the prop Star Wars. If I remember right, I cannot remember which of the three off the top of my head, but now that I think about it, it's probably The Empire Strikes Back, when Darth Vader chops off Luke's hand and says, I'm your father. Because actually, if you put batteries into this and you press the button, it actually says, Luke, I am your father, but the batteries are currently dead. I did try. I wanted to show you guys it because it's pretty cool. It's actual Darth Vader voice. It says, Luke, I am your father. And I think he says, if I remember right, together we can claim the galaxy. But yeah, the batteries were dead, unfortunately, but I did try. And so, yeah, so I've always been a big Star Wars fan. As a kid, I was lucky enough to have people around me gift me with all the Star Wars toys. For me, it was all about the toys and the cultural phenomenon of the time. Only as an adult did I realize that I basically didn't see any of the movies, except for the occasional clips on television. As already, the 11th movie was released, and with all the hype, I knew I had to reinvest my time into the Star Wars movie franchise. The only way for me to understand and therefore appreciate these movies was to watch them, all of them. Previously, I had always planned on buying all of the Blu-rays, as I prefer hard copies. However, as I recently found, I could not wait any longer. I decided that I wanted to watch the movies online. As I looked up the costs online, I found some pretty interesting facts. If you look up YouTube movies, all three of these movies cost $28 each. That would total, because there's three of them in the trilogy, $28 each for the trilogy would total $84. That's a lot of money. So I did not previously have Disney Plus, but looking them up, it only cost $9, not $9 Canadian dollars per month. So that's a ridiculous difference. So of course, I subscribe to Disney Plus. As I have decided, I'm going to watch all 11 of the Star Wars movies. I had to decide the order in which to watch them. The release date, the release date chronological order makes more sense to me, as the production era, and the cultural aspect of society at the time is more relevant for me. So I watched episodes 4, 5, then 6 over 2 days, finishing only yesterday. The first the first movie I'll review is Episode 4, A New Hope. For me, the opening crawl was always the coolest thing. It was always the coolest thing to first see. So I was disappointed when it was actually in French. Um, it was only in French, because although Canada is considered bilingual, which is French and English, this still makes no sense. Thankfully, episodes 5 and 6 had English opening crawls. The desert planet of Tatooine, as I remember it, was amazing. It really had amazing cinematography. I, I, I still remember I still remember my toys as a kid of those lizard horses that the stormtroopers would sit on, and also the toys of those little guys with the hoods, with the little eyes in those black faces. I still remember those toys that I had. I'm still impressed with also the holographic recording of Leia, and subsequently all of those types of holographic recordings and communications. That still impresses me, even in the year 2020, right? For me, making these types of, I just wanted to say that when you make these types of YouTube videos, it's very important to be prepared, because a lot of the times, even though you think you're prepared, as soon as you hit that record button, you're either just going to forget things, or things will just be disorganized, you'll be thinking about other things, or you'll get a little nervous, and then when you look back at the video, you'll be like, oh, I forgot to say this, or I didn't say this in the right order, or whatever. So just like anything, you need to be prepared. So for me, before I make these videos, I write everything down, and I make sure that everything sounds logical and makes sense, and that type of thing. So although it kind of looks a little awkward, as if I'm reading this stuff, you know, it's better for me to do it this way, because like I said, I'm just going to forget things, and things would just won't be coherent or as smooth as possible. So that's what I'm doing when you're looking at me reading this. It's just thoughts that I had of what I wanted to mention beforehand, pre-prepared before this video. That's what everyone should really do, really. Another thing that I found about episode 4 was that needle scene, that Leia needle scene. I found it very interesting, but without showing us what actually happened in that room, it only led to assumption. We never really knew what happened, right, in that room. Although the movie was made, although the movie was released way back in 1977, which was a long time ago, that cartoon-like animation of Jabba the Hutt was very primitive. and really should have been better. I'm always intrigued with the bar scene that they have in almost every Star Wars movie, and seeing those creative figures of the characters there. So I found that in that bar scene, Greedo was definitely one of my favorites there. Really cool looking type of character. What I also found when I watched this movie, that garbage disposal chute, that was a very interesting scene. Um, that um, that under, that underwater creature that was swimming underwater and pulled Luke under, that was just so creative and cool. What I think kind of ruined it a little bit was the way that he had his eyes pop up like that out of the water. Think that was a little too childish. And now that I think about it, um, it's kind of like one of Lucas's or someone's sort of things that they kind of like to stick to was those eyes that sort of like to pop up, right? I mean, I think that in some instances using it for R2D2 was okay, but I think it was just too much of it and too much silliness sometimes. Um, Another thing that I also wanted to mention just before I forget, now that I'm thinking about it, is kind of like Lucas and his use of reptiles, right? I mentioned like the I mentioned Jabba the Hutt, who's basically a reptile, right? I mentioned the lizard horses that the stormtroopers were on, right? When you watch, I think it was either this movie or later ones where Luke meets Yoda in that swamp environment, right? You see snakes and lizards, right? Um, and then in The Empire Strikes Back, right? One of the bounty hunters was a lizard. Actually, I had that toy. It was one of my favorite toys. Um, with that lizard bounty hunter, right? One of the coolest, one of my favorite Star Wars figures, right? That lizard bounty hunter. Um, and it's just sort of like a constant use of reptiles, right? Um, Another thing that I found interesting was that only after watching it now did I realize that Obi-Wan committed suicide to Darth Vader, right? When you're kind of a little kid, when you're, I don't know, 8 years old, right? You don't really pick up on these details, right? You don't notice these things, right? But you watch it as an adult, and you can see that um, it was a suicide in order for, like he said, for Obi-Wan to reach that higher power. The awards ceremony was extremely glamorous with how everyone was so orderly in perfect rows. That type of like orderly fashion was very impressive to me. So yeah, so just an overall really good movie um, was Episode 4. So now I'm going to talk about Episode 5. Episode 5, of course, was The Empire Strikes Back. And the snowy atmosphere, along with those wintry animals, was a great idea and a good change. Very impressed with that. Luke's meeting with Yoda was meaningful, but the lack and the incompleteness of the training was unsatisfying for me. Another thing that I noticed was when Darth Vader lowered Han Solo, into that torture-like apparatus, then the scene cut out. It was unclear to me what actually happened in there, or what the purpose was for that scene. And again, you know, these movies were made way back, many years ago, and so back in those times, they had the censorship was a lot higher, right? And so, like I said, with the Leia scene with the needle, they didn't show any of that, and the same thing with the with this Darth Vader Han Solo scene with that machine, right? But the problem with that is that, you know, even when I'm re-looking at that, even as an adult, it's only, I can only make assumptions, and I can never really sort of really know really what happened in that room. So I think they could have done better there. However, later in the movie, when Solo was frozen, that was just an epic scene in really all of cinema, right? And a lot of times now, when you watch, you know, like Twitch streamers, you know, you see like they have that prop, right, of Solo being frozen in that block, right, and that type of thing. The Luke, the Luke versus the Luke versus Darth Vader lightsaber scene, it was remarkable. The dark yet lightened downward tunnel was truly creative. So now I'm going to move on to look like that light just went out. See how if I can fix that. Just 1 second. Let me see here. Technical problems, but I think that's okay. I think we're good. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was Return of the Jedi, which was episode 6. So what I noticed was Jabba the Hutt's design was so much better, so much more improved than from his previous complete animation in episode 4 to a very realistic and interesting looking creature. His props of him eating those little animals in his water container were interesting. Okay, it's funny because when you watch these movies, these new movies, one of the things you always look forward to when you're watching the sequel or whatever, the next one, is you want to find something that's different and creative and refreshing. And so when you watch every new Star Wars movie, you know, like looking at the characters, right, especially the new characters, was always one of my favorite things. And so I'll just show you a picture of one of my favorite new characters in this movie. Just show you the picture here. So I hope you can see it right. I want to make sure that you guys can see him, right? Yeah, so that guy, right? Kind of like the very white guy with kind of like a snake, what looked like a snake attached to his head, right? So this guy, like, to me, I just found him so cool, right? Kind of like the landlord of the Jabba the Hutt um, cave, right? And not only did he look so cool, but he had a very cool and mysterious demeanor to him too, right? But the other thing that I also wanted to mention was like when you watch movies or franchises, right? Like especially the movies that are franchises and have always a new sequel every few years, right? So you're always kind of looking forward to like the it doesn't really necessarily you can't expect too much with the plot, right? Because like there's only so many more new ideas that they can come up with. So that's why like some franchises really need to end. But I keep watching them sometimes just to see like what cool new things they have. If I take for example like the Terminator series, right? Like I mean, so many of those movies have been crap, but why do I keep watching them? Because it's neat for me to just see like what new robots that they can come up with in the new movie, right? So in Salvation, they had those small ones that were in the water, right? Or you know, whatever. And so in the Terminator movies, it's especially interesting to see like how the producers and the directors and the developers come up with these cool new like robots of the future. But the thing about like as an adult now when I watch like the trilogy a little more carefully is that even though I say like there's these new characters that George Lucas comes up with, I see like the weaknesses in that like um, it seems to be patterns where he just likes to use the same like um, models just over and over again, right? Like you see in A New Hope, right, with the X-wing fighters, which is magnificent, right? But yet he uses it again in the next two movies of the trilogy, right? Or like the Millennium Falcon. I mean, it was great and fun to see. It's sort of really like humorous. Hear the jokes of like, oh well, like nothing ever works on it. It's a piece of junk. You have to like hit on it until so that it'll work, right? But like, does it really make sense for like a Millennium Falcon in all three of those movies to completely dominate and destroy like all of those Imperial ships, right? Just over and over again, and just completely like outmaneuver them, outspeed them, and destroy them over and over again, right? And like, does it make sense to like just reuse an old, outdated model over and over again? I haven't really seen like any of the movies beyond Return of the Jedi, but I know that Millennium Falcon was reused again, and like, why do that? And like, so many like of the different like models and systems were just used just over and over again. And I think that, the movie could have been so much better than that, right? Or, you think of like the Death Star, right? That was great to watch it the first time in New Hope, right? But they brought back the same exact concept in Return of the Jedi, right? It's still basically a Death Star, right? The same thing, right, with the same structure. And really, in destroying the Death Star, it's the exact same method in destroying it again, right? And so, like, these things, like how these repeated patterns are, and this lack of creativeness, right? I think it could have really been a lot better. And So moving on, like the scene of Luke being stuck in the cave with that huge beast was really interesting. Yet, like how the beast died, you know, when Luke just like kind of threw a rock at that switch and then it lowered onto his head and killed him. I thought that was very childish and kind of stupid, right? Or, you know, um, there's a scene of that huge open mouth eating creature in the desert. That's always been actually one of my favorite scenes. I think that's just so cool, and it's just such a creature in that desert atmosphere was just amazing, right? Um, but again, things like now that I think about it, when there's that scene where like um, they're they're flying to that mouth pit and on those hoverboards and you can see like Luke and that on the ship and then you can see the background and it's just so obvious like how you know um, it was kind of almost just photoshopped, right? Like it's just I think could have just been so much better that way. Well, not really Photoshop back then, but how it wasn't actually like a hoverboard in an actual desert, right? It was just a studio kind of cutscene, right? Um, the other thing that I found in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor's royal entourage was very picturesque throughout the movie, right? Like the, the Red Knights and how like orderly all of them were. It was just really impressive for me. Um, I found that Luke's final meeting with Yoda I mean, it was a necessary scene, but when Yoda refused to complete Luke's training, um, and his basically really sick-like demeanor, um, they were really, for me, those were really unsatisfying for me. That was really unsatisfying for me. Um, um, then like the second Death Star, the second Death Star as they called it, right? This had always been really confusing for me, right? Since I was a kid. Um, as it as the second Death Star looked very similar to the first one, especially with that same indented circle, and with the appearance of having been exploded, like how they blew it up in A New Hope. I had always thought that it was the first one having like after it had exploded, right? I actually just had to just tonight I did some research and I read that it's indeed a completely new one, but the similarities of the first one are just really confusing to me, and I think they could have done better with that. Um, Regarding the forest mood of Endor, um, I thought the forest atmosphere was creative and a good change from previous. Um, the air scooters and the way they traveled through the woods with such speed and accuracy was just spectacular to look at. However, however, as in the past, you know, Solo pretending to be an Imperior and tricking like an entire squad. It was once again, it was like basically grade school level. Um, didn't really like that at all. Um, I thought that the Ewoks were really creative in their nativity. How they did things from a very native standpoint. However, I thought their playfulness and foolishness it was just a little too much of a role in the movie, and I think that um, you know those it was an important part of the movie to have Ewoks, um, and it was great for if you brought like a 7-year old to watch the movie, but I think that like it just took too much. The role was too much, especially towards the end, with that whole like party at the end and that type of stuff. It was too much, right? Um, I found that the final encounter between Luke, Darth Vader, and the Emperor was remarkable. However, Luke, Luke's severing Darth Vader's hand, as was previously done to him, was basically killing Darth Vader, was just too unbelievable, especially due to the powerful nature of Darth Vader, just leading up until then, right? So like, um, like right up to then, almost the end of the movie in Return of the Jedi, and watching the full two movies before that, how strong and powerful, both mentally and physically, Darth Vader is. But like I said, when he gets his hand severed, just like Luke did, and Luke was not really affected by it, right? And in the movie, from what I could see, is that sever of his hand was what eventually killed him, right? I just thought that was just, it didn't make sense to me. Um, um, so um, in perspective, it does make sense to me to make a prequel to the trilogy, answering the questions as to how Darth Vader transitioned into what he became, answering questions about the history of the Force, the dark side, the Emperor, as well as Luke's background, including Leia. Although a prequel could answer these questions, it would basically be predictable with no creative surprises. Um, I do not see the point in creating Star Wars movies beyond Return of the Jedi. Um, at this point, the dark side had basically been abolished. Darth Vader and the Emperor are now dead, and their influences have basically disappeared. Obi-Wan and Yoda have died, and Luke has now fulfilled his entire destiny as a Jedi Knight. Um, there could there could there could be an interest there could be an interest there could be an interest to exploit Leia's fulfillment of a Jedi. If they wanted to show Leia, um, you know, transition into becoming a Jedi just like Luke did. But really, I don't think anybody really wants to watch a then middle-aged woman suddenly trained to be a Jedi. In addition, Carrie Fisher's real-life death would detract from an original and true storyline. Um, also, looking also 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 looking forward, does it really make sense to have what was once considered innovative phase guns and lightsabers, but now considered obsolete in a then future world? I think every good thing does come to an end, and as much as I love these movies, I believe the movies should have stopped at Episode 6, at Return of the Jedi. However, Hollywood wants to make money, and there will be people to watch them and pay for them. So now I will watch the remaining 8 movies, starting with the prequel. Perhaps, um, perhaps I will make another. Perhaps I will make another YouTube video of the prequel. So that's basically all I want to make for this video. So yeah, like when I watched those movies, it depends how you watch them, right? Like if you want to get more out of them, like, and you want to pay attention and think about things, like, it's a really lot to take in, right? And by the end of watching one of those, it'll be pretty draining, right? And so after watching all three of them, you know, that's that's just quite a bit. And so I wanted to make this video and not make it too long, but some people might think it's a little long, but if you think of it, it's not really that long compared to like how much really is into all three of those, right? So like I said, I'm gonna go and watch the prequel right now, and maybe if I feel like it, I'll make another YouTube video on what I thought of the prequel, right? And then maybe when I watch the sequel, right? So that would be episodes 7, 8, 9. Maybe I'll make another video of that. And then when I watch those extra movies like Solo and Rogue One. Solo, let me just get this terminology right. Yeah, it is called Solo, and the other one is called Rogue One. Maybe I'll make videos of that. So I'm just gonna wrap this up and say thanks a lot for watching this YouTube video. It's much appreciated, and it's very important for me if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. So press on the subscribe button and press on the bell. There's 3 different categories of the bell. Press the one that you get all notifications, so that when I post a new video, you can watch it right away, so it won't be outdated by the time you watch it. And get your friends and family to basically do the same thing, right? Because I really look at that subscriber count, and if that subscriber count goes up, it kind of indicates to me that if I should make another video, or how many more I should make. And so I'm going to wrap that up and say thanks a lot. So peace out.